So, hello once again everyone. Today we will be starting with a new chapter, communication systems, the last chapter of physics. I think it is chapter 15 in your NCERT books. This is lecture 1 part 1. I am Sameer Lavankar. So, let us begin our new journey. So, the course outline, just for a quick basis for you, we will start with introduction chapter, what is communication systems, what is the need of communication system, what is the meaning of the word communication systems. Then we will go on with the elements of a communication system, what are the elements, what are the basic requirements for a communication system to fulfill its work. Then next is basic terminology used in electronic communication systems like transducers, then there is receiver, what is an antenna, you know antenna, what is the use of antenna, etc. Then a small new concept that is known as bandwidth of signals, what is a bandwidth of transmission medium, everything will be dealt in subsequent slides. Next is propagation of electromagnetic waves, propagation as in movement of electromagnetic waves, how the waves are moving, what is the use of this movement and how this movement is being useful in communication systems. Next is modulation and its necessity, the very basic or the essence of why this chapter is being added in our syllabus. What is modulation, what is its need, how is it implemented, a small one of the basic part of modulation is being cut from modulation and being detailed explained in this chapter. And finally, what is amplitude modulation, also known as AM. So, without any further ado, let us start with our chapter. So, introduction about communication systems. So, please look over carefully, there is a little information to put here. So, communication is the act of transmission of information, as the word suggests. We already know what is communication is. Let us say there is a person A, there is a person B. So, for passage of information, for our case, for humans case, what we do is with our mouth we speak some words. What are these words? Words are basically any form of language. What we say? We say some words which are an form of language, it can be any language, form of language. So, language can be anything. For example, I am speaking with you in terms of English, maybe someone will speak with you in Hindi. People of different dialects say different words, those different words consume a different language. So, this is the basic essence of how we communicate. One form of body, maybe now one form of body can communicate with another form of body by using hand signs. Someone uses hand signs for communication, someone uses like dogs and they use different kinds of communication skills. Sometimes people use not people, sometimes things use electronic waves, sometimes things use sonic waves. So, there are different types of movement, different types of communications, and this communication is nothing but an act of transmission of information. So, I have some information, I want to bypass to you. How will I bypass? By saying something, by uttering words from my mouth. This uttering of words leads to passage of information from my mind or from my knowledge to you all. So, this is nothing but communication. Let us go with very basics. So, this is the first thing, this is the first line. Next, so every living creature in this world, experiences the need to impart or receive information, as the word suggests. It is very quite evident. If you have some information, you will try to give to me. If you have some information, you will try to give to me, or else not about information only, it is about receiving and imparting. So, every living creature in this world experiences the need to impart or receive information almost continuously with others in the surrounding world. For communication to be successful, it is essential that the sender and the receiver understands a common language. Quite evident, if I know English and you do not know English, you can't understand a single word coming out of my mouth. But if I know English and you also know English, then it is quite easy for you to understand and apply those concepts in your day to day life. So, and just being in this common language does not mean that you know English. Let us say I am talking to a dog, let us say I am talking to a cat. Even if I am saying English, it does not mean any sense to that living creature. So, the communication type should be same. For example, a cat or a dog understands hand signs. If I do it like this, if I do come, then these things can be understood by a dog. So, a common language has to be set, and how this common language is set in terms of a passage of large amount of data information is being dealt in this chapter. This is the very basic, that how am I talking. If I take it to real life scenarios, then physics come into picture. So, it is essentially that sender and the receiver understands a common language. Next, man has constantly made endeavors as in improvements or tried or trials to improve the quality of communication with other human beings. So, first of all, we were using hand signs, we were using some different dialects, then we improved it, then Devanagari script came, then we improved it to Hindi. Now, the Hindi spoken is very good, but then social media came, so we tried to use cut short words. So, this is the improvement to more and more interact us with the other human beings. Man has constantly made endeavors to improve the quality of communication with other human beings. Languages and methods used in communication have kept evolving from prehistoric to modern times. So, even today people's words like K, come are being used to meet the growing demands in terms of speed and complexity of information. Next, so this is also being done. This is just the basic of how the information from one man to another man can be upgraded and evolved to the communication of mass data. So, it would be worth a while to look at the major milestones and events that promoted developments in communications as presented in the table. So, how this communication evolved, how this communication started to grow. So, this was the basic idea. Have a look, it is not for any memorizing thing, just have a look and understand the situation, what was happening from the last 200 or 300 or maybe 1500 years. So, please look here. So, first of all, around 1565 AD, there were the reportings of delivery of a child by queen using drum beats. So, at that time, during King Akbar's time or in the Mughal era, how the communication was being passed. A drummer comes to the village and then it rolls the drums. So, during that everyone surrounds the drummer and then passage of information happens. So, this was the type of passage of information in those eras. So, reporting of the delivery of a child by queen using drum beats from a distant place to King Akbar. It is believed that Minister Birbal experimented with the arrangement to decide the number of drummers posted between the place where the queen stayed and place where the king stayed. After this, let us move on to 1835. So, what happened in 1835? Invention of telegraph by Samuel F. B. Morse and Sir Charles Wheatstone. These are the two prominent scientists at that point. If you remember correctly, if I give you the information more, then who was Morse? Morse was the person who was dedicated to creation of Morse code. Morse code is also one of the application, we can't say application, it is one of the way of communicating. It is one of the, we can say it's a way of communication of secretly, it is a secret communication code. And Wheatstone is one of the prominent scientists. If you will study more about physics, then you will get to know that there is something known as Wheatstone bridge. So, Wheatstone bridge is nothing but a creation of Sir Charles Wheatstone, and hence these were two scientists who led to the discovery of telegraph. What is a telegraph? Telegraph is just a simple device which is used to communicate information from one place to another place. So, as you can see, around 1560, just in around 200 to 300 years, there was a difference in the communication way by a huge amount. So, whenever first of all they were talking using drummers, and now they are using a telegraph here. So, it resulted in tremendous growth of messages through post offices and reduced physical travel of messengers considerably. So, now physical travel was being reduced. So, the drummers do not need to go far places just to passage a small bit of information. Next, in some few years, 1876, what happened was telephone was invented by Alexander Graham Bell, everyone know this person, and Antonio Meucci, sorry. Perhaps the most widely used means of communication in the history of mankind. So, this was one of the most. So, now we are just upgrading, we are expanding our information. So, now how the things has to be implemented from one place to several places. So, if we are in real life, then we can talk to one person, we can talk to 10 people only, but using communication like telephone and telegraph, we can talk to thousands of people. So, this was how the things got upgraded. Next, in 1895, Jagdish Chandra Bose and Guglielmo Marconi demonstrated wireless telegraphy. So, now wireless telegraphy was being used. So, everything was first wired, and now the communication was being used using wireless equipments. So, it meant a giant leap as in huge information, huge evolution was being made, huge upgradation was being made from an era of communication using wires. So, now wires were being used before this era 1895 to communicating without using wires. So, everything was now wireless. Next was 1936. So after Jagdish Chandra Bose's work in 1895, in some years in 1936 television broadcast was being started. So now television is also a form of communication. Let's say I record something and then I portray you using television. One person's recording is being seen by thousands, lakhs of people. So this is also passage of information only. Na? Communication means an act of transfer of information, either receiving or sending. So first television broadcast was done by BBC. BBC is a channel, is a foreign channel. 1955, first radio transmitted across continent, then radio came. Then next thing is internet came into existence, that is known as ARPANET. ARPANET came. Then fiber optics was being developed. If you have looked over the lecture of wave optics or lens optics, you came to know of concepts like total internal reflection and so on. So fiber optics came, and this was one of the fastest method to communicate a piece of information from one point to another point in minutes, not even minutes, in seconds. And finally in 1989 to 1991, Tim Berners-Lee invented World Wide Web, and this was the complete thing. Till now we are using World Wide Web only. World Wide Web is nothing but internet. You put on www dot and put the any website which is linked, and you can get thousands and lakhs of links which are linked to passage of information from a single guy, from a single blogger, or from a single vlog, or from a single video, to thousands, lakhs, crores of people. So this just look on. So 1989 to 1991 is the last point in this table, and we started with around 1565 AD. So in just this gap of 1565 and 1989, a piece the upgradation in communication was giant leap. It was many passage of upgradation. So this was the concept I need to tell you using this table. So finally it was just to tell you how the things changes, how the thing upgraded. Now a little bit about our prominent scientist Jagdish Chandra Bose. As you already knew from the last slide here, that Jagdish Chandra Bose was helpful for developing wireless telegraphy. So a little bit about him, not you don't need to memorize anything, just a little bit, so that we should know about our scientists. So Jagdish Chandra Bose developed an apparatus for generating ultra short electromagnetic waves. So electromagnetic waves were being generated, ultra short as in very short proportions, and studied their quasi-tropic properties. So these are nothing but please don't look over the words evidently. Quasi-optical is a very typical term. For now he studied the waves, the properties of these waves. He was said to be the first to employ a semiconductor like galena as a self-recovering detector of electromagnetic waves. So if you have studied the concept of semiconductors in your one of the physics chapter, you may get to know what is a semiconductor, what are the uses of semiconductor and so on. So a semiconductor was also one of galena is also one type of semiconductor which is used as self-recovering detector. Self-recovering, as the name suggests, it recovers the particles by self. Next is Bose published 3 papers in British magazine. It is one of the highest prominent magazines like Electrician. His invention was published in the Proceedings of the Royal Society. Royal Society is one of the conferences or group of people who are very popular among the scientists. On 27 April 1899, over the 2 years before Marconi's first wireless communication, 13 December 1901. Marconi was one of the scientists who helped him with wireless telegraphy, who was also responsible for wireless telegraphy. And then Bose also invented highly sensitive instrument for the detection of minute responses by living organisms to external stimuli, and established parallelism between animal and plant tissues. If you have this last line was also being told, if I remember correctly, in some of the Hindi chapters also. So if you remember the stuff, then this concept was being told, not a concept, this line was being highly iterated to you when one of the Hindi chapters came. So just a quick brief about Jagdish Chandra Bose. Let us move on to our basic introduction again. So now modern communication has its root in the 19th and 20th century, as in the form of communication we are using at this present moment was being started in present era only, 19th and 20th century, in the work of scientists like J.C. Bose, F.B. Morse, J. Marconi and Alexander Graham Bell. J.C. Bose is the Indian scientist we talked about, for wireless telegraphy. F.B. Morse was related to Morse code, as I already told you, Morse code. Then G. Marconi was also related to wireless telegraphy, and Alexander Graham Bell is nothing but the inventor of telephone. Next, the pace of development the pace of development seems to have increased dramatically after the first half of 19th century, first half of 19th century as in after 1950 and so on, that is first half of after first half of 20th century. We can hope to see many more accomplishments in the coming decades. The aim of this chapter, so now please look over carefully what will we extract from this chapter. So, aim of this chapter is to introduce the concepts of communication, namely the mode of communication. So, there are various modes of communication, either by waves, either by space, either by let us say land, ground wave, space wave, then sky wave. We will understand this every concept in quite detail. So, mode of communication is this. Next is the need for modulation. What is this modulation? What is this word modulation? I will explain to it clearly when the time comes. For now, there is a need for modulation, production and deduction of amplitude modulation. Amplitude modulation is also known as AM. So, we will get to know what is this second concept here. For now, just make it in brief that there is a need for modulation, production and deduction of amplitude modulation. Let us move on. So, this was our complete introduction, just a basic grasp of why the communication is required, why it is necessary, how was it evolved, was being told in this last slides. Let us move on to some of the elements of a communication system. So, please look over this figure very carefully. This is the complete black box of communication system. So, communication system is nothing but this rectangle, this hashed rectangle, as you can see. So, from the figure let's look over only the figure only first, then I will explain to you whatever is written on the left. So, as you can see there was an information source. Let us say I was the information source, and then receiver was you all people, let us say students, let us say this was student, just to make it quite an example so that we all can understand. I as in let me write my name here. So, now I had some information, I processed, I gave this to you, I have that message, I gave it to you using my words. So, this was a signal to you, my words being going in above or lower voice was a signal to you. So, this information was being used or being contracted by a transmitter. What will be a transmitter here? Just look over the situation here. Let us say this is a communication system. For us, what is the communication system here? For us, communication system is the recording device we are using right now, and your laptop as an output. Your sound system of laptop or mobile is as an output. So, now transmitter, there is a transmitter, then transmitter transmits a transmitted signal to a channel. Channel has a noise. What is a noise? What is the use of noise? We will get to know. After channel, it goes into receiver. So, what is a receiver? Anything which receiver receives is known as a received signal, anything which transmitter transmits is known as a transmitted signal. And finally, after the receiver receives you, that the students receive you, you will use that information, you are the user of this information, either you can grasp the concepts, either you can apply the concepts. So, this is the basic example of how the communication system are being used. So, let us move on. So, every communication system has three essential elements. First is the transmitter, this is the transmitter, then is the medium or the channel. Medium or channel is the way through which my passage of information is being done from a information source to a receiver, and finally is a receiver. So, these are the three basic essential elements of a communication system. The block diagram shown in the figure depicts the general form of communication system. So, now in a communication system, the transmitter is located at one place, and the receiver is located at some other place which is far or near, separate from the transmitter, and the channel is the physical medium. Please make sure channel is the physical medium that connects them. The physical channel is physical medium that connects them. Everything is quite evident only. So, transmitter is there, receiver is there, and channel is something which connects them. Next, depending upon the type of communication system, a channel may be in the form of wires. So, channel can be in the form of wires or cables connecting the transmitter and the receiver, or it may be wireless. So, it can be either with wires or it can be wireless. So, that is a something channel. So, for our case it is a wireless equipment, and that hence it is a wireless channel. Now, the purpose of the transmitter is to convert the message signal produced by the source of information to convert the message signal produced by the source of information into a form suitable for transmission through the channel. What is the form suitable for transmission? We will get to know when we will understand the concept of transmitter. Into a form suitable for transmission through the channel. If the output of the information source is a non-electric signal, what is a non-electric signal? One of the example of non-electric signal is given to you, such as voice signal. So, my words coming out of my mouth is nothing but voice signal. A transducer converts it to electrical form. What is a transducer? We will get to know in subsequent slides. It to electrical form before giving it as an input to the transmitter. So, for now we got to know what are the elements of a communication system, what is the transmitter, what is the channel, what is the receiver. For now I would like to end this lecture here only. In the next lecture we will get to know more about this and what is the transmitter, what are the more elements of a communication system, what are the parts, what are the basic requirements of a communication system and so on.